Do you think I'm ready to be in a serious relationship?
How do you know though? How do you know that this is not the person that is worth my time?
Saying, we're done, we're good, we're dating no more.
It's like you don't see the depth, you don't see how much you've hurt me, so it's entirely not up to you at this point.
You need to come up with a set of questions, a set of non-negotiables.
That are I want to differentiate and see how I can place reconciliation and forgiveness.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because I think
what would make me want to break up with them or them want to break up with me? What
you know you shouldn't date the person because of those things.
Oh yeah, that's it. Hello everyone, welcome and welcome back to my channel. I am Margaret Naakaongayumi, your self-help coach, and yes, this is your self-help channel. On this channel, we talk about subjects, topics that enable you to become nothing but the very best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. And here with me is a very, very special guest all the way from the US. I'm so glad to have her here. Rylie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about why relationships fail. So you want to stay tuned. So maybe before we talk about why relationships fail, maybe I would like you to talk about what are the initial things to consider before you actually get into a relationship. Because maybe sometimes we tend to just want to be in a relationship, but what does it take? What must I do? Who should I become, before I can get into a relationship with somebody?
Yeah, I think a lot of times you have to evaluate yourself.
Okay.
And am I even ready to be in a relationship? Because like, what's the point of dating someone? The point of dating is marriage. And so am I myself ready to be married? And I think asking people in your life, do you think I'm ready to be in a serious relationship? I think especially your siblings will probably give you a very honest answer. And maybe the answer is no, and you need to wait and work on yourself and actually preparing to be in a relationship if that is your desire ultimately. But a lot of times I think when you're most looking for a relationship is when you'll go for someone who's not worth your time.
And then how do you know though? How do you know that this is not the person that is worth my time?
I think there's a lot of things. I think starting by asking questions about that person. Asking their friends. Oh, do you think this person's ready to be in a relationship? Asking adults in their life, maybe a mentor. Do you think they're ready to be in a relationship?
Yes.
What does their past look like? Have they dated a lot of other people? Have they cheated on other people? Like things like that, where I think you can, if you ask the right questions, a lot of times you can rule someone out simply by asking the right people the right questions. But you have to be willing to do that.
Okay.
Just because the person likes you, it doesn't mean you should date them.
For you, for sure. But then in that process, while you're asking, their mentors, their friends, what is going on between you two? Are you in a friendship kind of relationship? Are you just talking? Or you're just like complete strangers at the time, but maybe you just like them? Yeah,
I think there has to be interest between the two of you for there to be the ability to ask those questions. I think maybe if there's interest between the two of you, you can ask those questions. And then I think before you start dating the person and becoming emotionally attached to the person, you need to ask those questions, because the more attached you become, the harder it's going to be to break things off if you find out things that
you don't like and you're not up for.
And you shouldn't date the person because of those things.
Oh yeah, that's so true. Now, let's say I've started a relationship. I like this guy, we're attracted to each other, and I feel like, we make a good fit. Maybe even my siblings have told me, you're ready for this. But then in the course of the relationship, maybe it takes 2 years, long term or short term, what would make me want to break up with them or them want to break up with me? What would just, what trouble would we face that would lead us to, just like break it up and just call it quit?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because I think conflict obviously is going to arise. That's just inevitable. And depending on your personality, I have a pretty strong personality. So there's often conflict over things that are very small and minimal. Just because I'm emotional, just because I can get riled up easily over small things. But it's recognizing the small things versus the big things. Like, what is a minor thing? What is a problem we can work through versus what are kind of the bigger things? And I think bigger problems are like, are they a Christian? Do you have the same values as them? I think ultimately where you picture yourself in life, like for me, I've known from a very young age. My brother's adopted from Zambia here. And so I've known from a young age that I want that to be a part of my life, that I'm interested in fostering or adopting. And so for me, one of those big questions has been, oh, if I'm dating someone seriously, if we get to a certain point where we're talking about marriage, I need to know that they're on board and willing to foster and adopt. And so I remember at one point someone told me, you need to come up with a set of questions, a set of non-negotiables that are the big ticket issues that are really important to you. And before you even enter into a relationship, you need to have those things on a list. And those need to be conversations that are had before you even talk about getting married, right? And so some people, they do that on a first date. They bring their set of questions and they ask them. I know one of my mentors, I think her husband did that on their first date. He brought his questions, asked her the questions. How many kids you want to have? What kind of lifestyle are you interested in living? Like, if that person is very content being poor and you're not, then that's probably a big issue. It's not going to be something that is easily reconciled.
So those are some of the hard questions, hard conversations that you're supposed to have instead of running away from them, right? So I'm hearing you say personality is a factor and also the same value system, because maybe sometimes we might have the same goals, but our value system is going to determine how we actually attain those goals, right? But then I'm curious again, because if you say you have like this set of questions, don't you think somebody will just like, go with the flow, accept whatever you are giving condition just for them to get you into marriage? How do you differentiate and just like, kind of navigate your way around knowing if they're genuinely answering your questions from their heart, from who they are, or maybe just trying to please you and just get you to marry them?
Yeah, I think part of that is evaluating their character beforehand. I think asking those people those questions and asking, I mean, you could even ask someone else those questions. If you think they're not answering honestly, like, hey, do you really think this person is interested in adopting and would be willing to do that? And I think also you can tell, I think at some point, hopefully, if you have conversations about it enough, you can tell if they're not being honest. I think the hard thing is, in one of my past relationships, the hard thing was, yes, there was times where they were being dishonest with me, but it wasn't intentional, because the reality was they weren't even being honest with themselves. And so I think you have to have the mind, like you have to think about it enough to really evaluate things for yourself. And I think if I really would have wanted to evaluate that relationship more, I think there were signs that pointed to the fact of that being the case, but I didn't want that to be the case. And so I think there's
not to see those.
And so I think there's part of it, like my parents and I had a conversation about this particular person. I said, hey, mom and dad, like, what do you think? We want to get married. We're thinking about this, talking about this. And my dad said, no, like, I don't think you guys are a match. Like, he doesn't match you well. And so it was shortly after that that he ended up breaking up with me. And so
did you listen initially when dad said no?
I thought about it. But at the time we were dating long distance. And so I wasn't going to break up with him over the phone. Even if I came to that conclusion, I probably would have waited until he came home from his trip, because it was only a couple of months away. But I think I just wasn't in a place, like I mentioned earlier. It was difficult for me to truly evaluate things because I was in a place where I didn't want it to end. And I really enjoyed the friendship because we had a good friendship. We really enjoyed each other, things like that. But it wasn't marriage material, you know?
I think I can also relate. But for my part, I just didn't listen to my parents. Like you said, they're my mentors, and they said, this guy is not good for you. But I chose not to listen. I just wanted it, to be successful. And mentors play a very big role in, giving us advice in those lines, because people from outside can know a person better than you know them, because with you, they'll try to please you. They'll try to play by the book, But then my next question would be, I'm thinking of patience, right? Because you're a Christian and it is part of the fruit of the Spirit. How does it come in, having patience with a person that you're currently, you want to get married to? How long, how patient are you going to be with them especially regarding like, you know, those behaviors that you're not happy with.
Yeah.
How long can you just say, I've been patient with you, you're not changing? Or should just the patience go on and on and on until marriage and then after marriage? What do you think?
Yeah, I had a conversation about this just the other day, actually, recently, with someone. And I think there's certain things in a relationship. There's certain things that I do because of the way I was raised, because of past hurts in my life.
Traumas,
even past relationships, like past ways that I've been hurt by past boyfriends or things like that are going to affect the way I'm involved, even with the person I'm involved in, even if they're a completely different person. And so I think some of it is knowing and understanding that person's background so that you can understand why they're responding the way they're responding. And so I think especially people who have been through trauma, who've been abused, different things like that, I think there's going to be habits and patterns that are very destructive that are going to be hard to get out of because of what they've been through. And so I think it's having understanding for those things, but then also recognizing, is this something I can live with for the rest of my life? And so there's part of it too that I think there's a natural patience, and it's like, as Christians, we need to be patient. We need to love. We need to recognize that just as Christ died for us, for our sins.
And he's so patient with us, you know.
That person also deserves that forgiveness, because just as I've been forgiven, that person also like deserves forgiveness. And like, just as we've been forgiven by Christ, we forgive others. And so I think there's part of it that's a natural, like, we need to be in Christ and dwelling in the Spirit and things like that, so that we can love others well. But then there's also part of it that it's like, maybe I don't have the patience for this particular person's personality. Maybe we just don't mesh. Maybe there's too much fighting. But I think it's like, you really have to know your personality and know yourself to be able to determine, okay, what can I handle? What can I do this for the rest of my life? Like I remember in the same conversation with my parents, we were talking about, my mom was telling me that at some point you just have to choose that person and you have to evaluate them and all their faults, all their issues, whatever they come with, whatever baggage they come with, and just choose to love them and say, no, I'm going to love this person.
And that's love, actually. Unconditional love.
And I'm going to love them no matter what happens. And I think the other part of it too is another one of the mentors in my life, she was talking to me about her marriage, and she said, I had no idea the hardships that we would go through in our marriage. And like, if I knew the hard things that we would go through, I don't know if I would do it. But it's like, she's like, but obviously she has beautiful children. She has a loving husband. They have an awesome and beautiful relationship. But it's also like, I think you don't really know who you're marrying. You know, I don't think anyone does. No matter how long you guys have been together, you can never fully know the person. And so I think there's part of it that's time, getting to know them, getting to know their bad habits. I also think just if you meet them in a really hard season of life, the guy I'm dating currently, we met in just a really difficult season of life. And I think he really saw the worst of me and was able to love me in that. And so it's like, okay, if you can love me when I'm literally, I think, at my worst, so mean, so just struggling, like in my personal life, like, then that's what love is loving someone at their worst, loving someone in the hard things. And so I think it's like, if you haven't had real struggles in your relationship, like I think my parents also, my dad's mom was like dying when they were dating. I think when they shortly after they got married, she ended up passing away. And so they went through a lot of difficulty with that when they were dating. And they were like, our first year of marriage was easy because we had already gone through all these hard things. But they were like, all our friends who got married around the same time as us really struggled because they hadn't really been through hard things in their relationship. And so I think part of it is seeing how they respond to difficulty, because the true colors come out and they can't be dishonest. You know?
They can't. How long can they hold it in? You know? Yeah, that's so true. I think my last question would be, I want to differentiate and see how I can place reconciliation and forgiveness. Because let's say we've been in a relationship and you hurt me badly, and I feel like I just can't live with this one of your flaws, you know, based on my personality and your upbringing and everything. But then, how do I place reconciliation and forgiveness? How am I able to forgive you and walk away? Or is that fully forgiveness, or would you say it's not fully forgiveness until I forgive you and still reconcile with you in our relationship?
Yeah. I think some of the hard thing, I think, especially with dating relationships, depending on how close you get to that person and their family, it can be really hard to reconcile and have true reconciliation, because I think you get very used to that person. It becomes comfortable. You get to know their family. And depending on how you're involved, how much you're involved with them, I think it can be really hurtful to just walk away. But I think that's part of a breakup, is just truly walking away. And I don't think that's not forgiving the person. I think that's actually loving them. Like if you are saying, we're done, for good, we're dating no more, I think the best thing you can do for yourself is just walk away and just leave that relationship. I think part of it is reconciliation is two-sided. Forgiveness is one-sided. Forgiveness is between me and the Lord. Forgiveness is me recognizing, God, you've paid the debt for this person's sin. And if they accept you and they know you, then you've died on the cross for them, and that's enough. And if they don't know you, then they're going to be judged ultimately for the wrongs that they have done. And so I think it's leaving justice to God is part of forgiveness. It's recognizing I don't have the responsibility to make this person feel guilty or recognize that they're responsible for their actions. Because I think the hard thing, especially in dating relationships, is that person may never say sorry to you.
And they don't even feel like they did, it wasn't that bad. But then you feel so hurt, and it's like you don't see the depth, you don't see how much you've hurt me. So it's entirely not up to you at that extent, is it?
And maybe they'll say sorry. And maybe they'll say sorry for some things, and then years later you'll be like, oh my gosh, they did this other thing and they never apologized for it. And I think thinking through things and evaluating things, more things are always going to come up. There's going to be ways that you recognize that you've been hurt, or hard things as you enter into new relationships that come up. But I think the forgiveness, a lot of times I think we talk about forgiveness as like, oh, this is a one-time thing. It's a one and done, I forgive them. And I think that's not totally true. Like, I think forgiveness is, yes, I think in that moment, I need to come before God and say, God, like, I forgive this person. Like, please help me to forgive them. And I think you can let things go in the moment. But I think especially depending on the level of hurt that's been done, I think new things are always going to come up. And so recognizing that it's a continual forgiveness. It's a continuation of, okay, I have this one thing I've forgiven them for. Okay, a couple days later, I still feel bitterness or anger towards them, and I have to continue to forgive them. And then I think there might be the opportunity for reconcile. It depends who the person is. I remember I was feeling really hurt over a relationship, and I ended up just writing a letter. And I just read them the letter, and I said, hey, like, here's how you've hurt me, this and that. The other person was a Christian, and so I think there left a lot of room for reconciliation because they were a Christian and they were a really nice person. But I think giving that opportunity, like, I think writing that letter really gave me the opportunity to express, like, hey, this really hurt me, and here's this, this, and this, and here, just kind of lay it out in a way that I think allowed me on my own to process what had happened, and then also to be like, hey, here is this, and they apologized, and they said, I'm really sorry, I'm sorry that I hurt you like that, all those different things. And we're not reconciled. We're not going to be friends. That's not a reality. Like, I think one day, hopefully I'm going to marry someone else, and I'm not going to have any contact with them. There's not going to be like the opportunity for that. But I think even now there's things that'll come up where I'll be like, oh my gosh, I remember that time, or this moment, or this smell, or these, I'm in this certain place, and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this reminds me of that person. And I'll have to go back and be like, I need to forgive them because I'm still holding on to bitterness and holding on to things.
Rylie, this has been so educative and fun. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. All the way from the US.
Yes,
girl,
California.
California, right in the heart of America. You guys, I hope you got one or two things from this conversation. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you are new to this channel, remember to subscribe for more videos like this one. We have been talking about why relationships fail. And if at all you have failed relationship, it's time for you to reconcile and forgive the other person, and also work on yourself, before you get into a new relationship. Talk to mentors, friends, siblings of that person, and make sure you're ready for a new relationship. This is the end of the video. From me to you and Rylie. Bye. See you on the winning side.